So hello everybody, very short video today, and it's about how I exposed slide film. I'm not very experienced with slide film at all, so I'm very much used to shooting negative film, and I'm pretty confident on how to do that and what I can get away with and what not. Slide film, I'm always very hesitant. I take my spot meter, I meter very meticulously, and then take a decision. But even then, sometimes I took the wrong decision. It's too dark or it's too bright. And now I took some slide film to Mauritius, where we were on vacation, beginning of April, and I had a roll of Kodak Chrome, Ektachrome 100 from Kodak in my camera. Trying to sort of, remember when I was shooting a certain scene, what are the measurements I took, and now afterwards sort of to see and compare what the outcome is, sort of as a guide for myself. I learned something from that, so maybe it helps you as well. So I had the Contact 645 with me, like I had the film loaded. I have on here wide angle lens, 3.5, 35 millimeter. And I didn't have a spot meter with me. I only had the internal meter. So what I did was basically I put the camera on auto. I didn't shoot on auto. I just used the auto to measure the scene. I was shooting manually when I actually took the shot. And I put the exposure meter here on spot meter, so that he would, can you see it? Yeah, spot meter. So to have a very precise measurement. And then normally I measured in the brightest part, normally the sky or the clouds or the sand. And then I measured the darkest part. And then the camera would tell me inside when I look through, for example, the brightest part, I have to expose 1/1000th of a second. And then for the darkest part, maybe it told me you have to expose for 1/125th of a second. Now, you know how light meters work. If I would measure 1/1000th of a second on the brightest part, on the clouds, for example, and I would actually dial that in and shoot like that, the resulting image, that cloud would be sort of medium gray, sort of a medium tonality. Of course, that's not what you want. The other way around, if I would have taken the shadow measurement, 1/125th of a second, whatever was in the shadow, that would have been medium gray, and everything else would have been pushed very high and would likely be overexposed. That works great on negative film. On slide film, you have to be a bit more careful. So in that case, for example, I saw the shadows 1/25th, the highlights on 1000, and then I can sort of take a decision. Where do I want to place them? For this example, for example, I could decide to shoot at 1/500th of a second. Then the highlights would be on +1, and the shadows would be on -2, 2 stops down. Or I could have decided 1/250th of a second, then the highlights would be +2, and then the shadows -1. And then depending on the scene, that changed a little bit, but you will see on the video. Overall, I would say the exposures were on the bright side, but that's what I prefer. I'd rather have a little brighter image and not blocked up shadows than having the blocked up shadows, because I'm not really a big fan of that. So you'll see that. And what I also noticed with Ektachrome, when I exposed a bit more, so gave it more light, the highlights tend to go a little bit in the warm area, which, yeah, it's quite nice, depending how you like your image. Now, of course, I haven't seen the original slides yet. The film was sent to Come and See the Film Lab. They scanned it. They normally edit it, color correct it. Then I get the files, and then I do my color correction editing according to my taste on top of that. So what you see here is basically the lab processing it, me processing it. So it's not the true what you see on the slide. But it's important for me that I see, if I expose the slide film in a certain way, what does it look like? What can I get away with? Will it be blown out? Will the darks be like pleasant or not? So in this scene I measured f8 to 1/1000th of a second in the sand. 750th of a second in the sky, and then on the black stones 1/500th of a second. Now I exposed the whole thing at 1/500th of a second to give it a bit more a brighter feel. I'm scared it gets too dark otherwise. So this scene, again, in the brightest areas I had 1/1000th of a second, and in the shade in front of the palm trees down here I have 1/125th of a second. Now I took a picture where I put that on -1, and one where I put that on -2. So I shot at 1/250th of a second, and then the second one on 1/500th of a second. Let's see how they turn out. Yeah, and this shot, again, it's the same. In the brightest areas you have 1000, in the shadows you go down to 1/250th of a second. I shot this at 250th of a second, so the brightest highlights are +2 to give them maybe a bit more punch, make it a bit more brighter and not too moody. We'll see how that works out. So same situation, the shadow areas in the front, 1/25th of a second, brightest area 1/1000th of a second. Took two pictures, one at 1/250th of a second and one at 1/500th of a second. Took this one at 1/250th of a second, so maybe a little more on the brighter edge. We will see. I hope this light meter of the Pentax is halfway okay. So one time I exposed according to my 1/250th of a second. The second one I chose matrix metering on the camera, and that it automatically exposed. It shows 1/350th of a second. So a little bit lower than me. We'll see how that turns out. And now this lighting is a bit more complicated, a bit more tricky. I choose 1/250th of a second again. Down in the grass it's 1/30th of a second, and the sky was like this. You don't really see the sky, it's covered by clouds and some leaves. 1/250th of a second, and I opted for 1/60th of a second, so the grass is -1. Let's see.